Hey guys, welcome to the channel. My name's Ryan and I'm a former Royal Marines Commando from the United Kingdom. Today we're reacting to a video titled How I Survived Actual Military Warzone. So I guess this is self-explanatory, this one, guys. Okay, we're gonna hear an account of someone who survived an actual military war zone, and we'll get our 2 pence worth in. Okay, but before we do, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out and I really do appreciate it, guys. But we're not going to waste any time. Get straight into this. Let's go.
It's burning hot outside. Temperature's well over 100 degrees, and the air conditioning on our up-armored Humvee barely does a thing unless you press yourself right up against the vent. I'm really tempted to let down the window, but even when the wind blows out here in the desert, it just feels like a blow dryer to your face. Also, we're stopped, and it's hardly safe to let your bullet-resistant windows down in this part of the country when your vehicle's at a dead standstill. I'm a fire team leader, and my team and I are providing escort security for a VIP in the Humvee in front of us. Directly in front of his Humvee is 2 others, and the lead Humvee stopped because of a suspicious pile of trash on the road ahead. But now everyone's on edge when they travel these roads. The insurgency has been hiding IEDs in everything from children's toys to random piles of trash and triggering them as a NATO column moves by. We've stopped for about a minute now, and I'm getting really nervous. This is my first deployment, and I've heard stories about what happens when your convoy sits still for too long. On the radio, I hear the VIP, some general, call out to the lead vehicle, "Just shoot the damn thing and drive past." That actually
Yeah, so this is the kind of stuff that you'd expect when you're in the Middle East, okay, in various other parts of the world, but predominantly the Middle East. I can understand the heat situation most definitely. He mentioned aircon. Yeah, the vehicles we were using didn't have aircon. I was in a back of a Pinzgauer most of the time, which is I think it's a French vehicle. I might be wrong on that, but yeah, he's used to carry like a fire team's worth of soldiers in, or Marines rather. And these things are red hot. You just got to get over it, guys. With all the kit and stuff, there's no escaping it, all right? And you've got to hydrate. It's horrendous.
actually sounds like a good idea. It's moments later and the lead vehicle opens up with a 50 caliber machine gun in its turret. There's a dull thump sound, and past the 3 vehicles in front of me I can see a cloud of dust rising up into the air. Yep, it was an IED after all. Suddenly I'm more nervous than I was before, if that's even possible. We were supposed to have an MRAP with us to clear the way. That's a mine-resistant, ambush-protected vehicle that we've been told can take an IED to the face and keep on trucking. They just got in theater though, and as usual, maintenance issues means they weren't ready to go when we needed them. The lead vehicle is waiting until visibility is restored before pressing forward again. No point driving straight through a thick dust cloud into whatever may have been waiting for our lead vehicle to take that IED and get knocked out. There's zero chance any insurgents in the area know of our VIP cargo, but to them, hitting one convoy is as good as any other. They just want to score casualties. Still nervous about sitting still, I tell our Mark 19 automatic grenade launcher gunner, who's looking behind us and providing rear security, to keep his head on a swivel. Then it happens. There's a dull thwack 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 sound, and 3 cracks appear on the driver's side bullet-resistant front window. I can see dull sparks from rounds pinging off the armor of the Humvee in front of us. Without needing to be told, the M60.
So you mentioned something a few moments ago about the vehicles, and you know how maintenance didn't get these vehicles out correctly, or words that effect. Now, the vehicles that we were using in the British military, I don't think the United States has this problem. You know, money's not a problem in the US, but with Great Britain, it is. Our budget's nowhere near as big. And, you know, we were going around in vehicles that were many years old, some cases decades old, okay? It's all to do with contracts and people who, people in higher places, you know, with having shares in companies and stuff like that. It's the very reason that we had the SA-80 rifle for so long. Too many people in higher places with shares in the bloody thing, and it's the same as the vehicles as well. All right, driving around in vehicles that were just too old, and you had to maintain these things well beyond their actual capable sell-by date, okay? And it was just ridiculous, guys. I don't think the United States had that problem. Let me know in the comments if that is not the case, though.
Gunner in that Humvee immediately spins his turret and starts putting out fire into the field to our left where the firing is coming from. My mouth goes dry. This is it, and I very desperately want one of two things to happen. I want the convoy lead to order us to dismount, because sitting in a Humvee is not a good place to be when the bad guys have RPGs, even if you're driving an up-armored version like we are. I also want the convoy to just press forward, pedal to the metal, get the hell out of here. That's exactly what doctrine states in most situations. You push out of the ambush zone, but we don't move. Then we get a question over the radio. Are we receiving fire to the rear? Negative. After a moment, the convoy lead asks for our gunner to lay down a 100 meter by 100 meter barrage on the field we're taking sporadic fire from. I yell at my gunner, who seems eager to obey the order. A half second later, there's the dull thumping from the huge automatic grenade launcher, and in my stomach I can feel the impact of the 40mm grenades exploding. He puts out fire in a 100 by 100 meter square as instructed, because we can't see the shooters, and in my head, I remember practicing the same tactic when I too qualified on the Mark 19. I always pictured myself painting a giant box, the grenades being full of paint, and making sure every single square inch of that box got filled in. The fire we were taking dies off long before our gunner finishes his job, then immediately turns his turret around to provide rear security again. We sit in silence for a few moments, and the order to...
So, I don't know if any of you guys has been, who's watching this, more than likely, a few of you will have completed some form of military training before. Some of you guys may be Royal Marines, US Army Infantry, British Infantry, whatever. There's one thing for sure: if you have partaken in some form of infanteering based infantry training, then you'll have practiced setting up an ambush. Okay, you'll have practiced doing that either in vehicles, on foot, or both. Now, there's one thing that we always used to practice for, which was, how to take the enemy on in certain situations, and effectively do the job that you signed up to do. I don't need to mention anything too descriptive there. But one thing we didn't practice for, and no one seems to practice for, is how to respond when you're on the receiving end. So you never really practice what it's like to be on the receiving end of an ambush. Okay, you don't really practice these things. So what happens if you encounter an overwhelming fighting force and you've been ambushed? What do you do in that situation? Yes, you'd break contact and you'd practice break contact drills, but you never actually physically practice being in an ambush per se, or you certainly don't do it very often. I wonder what the US guys, or anyone else who's watching this from around the world, what did you practice? Do we practice winning too much? I think we do. I think we need to practice, the situations where we are overwhelmed, where we have to fight out and we have to think and adapt and overcome, because when you're practicing an ambush, you realize anyone who's in that range, that arc of fire, is going to get absolutely, absolutely eradicated, and it's not a position you want to be in, really.
To go forward is given. I look down at my watch, and incredibly, only 2.5 minutes have passed since we stopped for the suspected IED. My first combat felt like hours, and it was barely 150 seconds. Later we get word that a security sweep of the area found the remains of 3 bodies. When I hear the news, I realize that these guys weren't the real deal. Probably just some fired up kids hoping to take out some Americans and make a name for themselves. The real insurgency is a lot better at their jobs. It's now 2 days later, 1800 hours. We just got out of a briefing for tonight's op and are headed for Chow. We've been tasked with providing security for some intelligence guys as they lead us to a house in a local village. Tonight's gonna be a snatch and grab. The target is a bomb maker who is suspected of being pretty high up the chain, and likely the guy who either built the bomb the teenagers who got themselves KIA the other day tried to use, or planted it himself and left them behind to try and take out some Americans. The intel guy suspected he's been sent there by his higher-ups to try and bolster the local insurgency. This area has been relatively quiet for years, but we're getting intel from locals that the insurgent forces are moving back in. If we can take this guy alive, it'll be a huge intelligence victory. So we're told over and over again how important it is we practice strict fire discipline. Also, the house is located in the very center of the village and packed right in next to 2 other houses on each side. The walls in most of these houses are really thin, and even our M4s can punch through these walls and hit someone on the other side. Limiting civilian casualties is critical. Nobody wants to be responsible for killing a civvy. I'm scared to death, but I try not to show it for the sake of my team. The prospect of going into the middle of a village to try to snatch a high-ranking enemy VIP makes my stomach churn. We've trained extensively for urban combat, even went through FBI training in close quarters battle or CBQ, and I know it can be a nightmare. There's too many places to hide or get ambushed from. Civilians everywhere. In military parlance, it's a total shit show. Also, tonight we can't go in with heavy weapons. We're limited to just M249 saws on the Humvees, and even those are for emergencies only. The M249 is like the smaller cousin of the M60 or the M240 Bravos, and there's something about seeing the big 60s or 240s on a turret that makes me feel safer, or preferably a 50 cal in a Mark 19. Everyone's in high spirits though. Only one other guy on our team has seen combat before, our sharpshooter. He doesn't really like to talk about it, but none of the snipers.
Right, so in this situation, then what's going to go through your head is you're going to be thinking about your drills and stuff like that. You are going to be thinking about collateral damage potentially if it's in an urban area and there's local civilians in place. It's not necessarily going to be at the forefront of your thoughts. However, you know, those more conscious will be thinking about, you know, the potential for civilians to be in there, because there's one thing for sure, and I think the US do a real good job of this, of protecting their soldiers if collateral damage is part of their job, all right, and it was an eventuality of whatever mission they undertook. If civilians accidentally got maimed, injured, killed, whatever, and you know, the soldier will be protected through the legal systems because they're carrying out a very, very horrendously stressful job, a job that's stressful beyond belief. We don't realize fully just how hard it is when you're actually fighting out on the ground to make those decisions. All right, these individuals, these soldiers aren't politicians, they're just soldiers. Okay, so they have to make the decision based on life-saving actions and you know, protect their own lives as well as the others. Okay, so their job is extremely hard, and I think sometimes if you get it wrong, which does happen on the battlefield, I think they should be protected more. In the US, I generally believe do a pretty good job of that. Dare I say, a better job than the British anyway.
Snipers ever really do. Through a long-range scope, you can see the faces of the people you shoot at, and that makes the war real personal for those guys. It's now 0100 hours, and we're rolling back down a road en route to our target. The great thing about this part of the country is that few of these places have electricity, and the clear desert skies let you see more stars than you've ever seen in your life. The starlight is good for—
Hey, honestly, I've got to pause it right there as well. The stars, the greatest sky I've ever seen in my life. I know the sky is the same, north side of the equator or south side of the equator, it's slightly different viewpoint, but you know, in America, when I was in the Mojave Desert, and I've been all over the world, guys, the Mojave Desert, looking at the sky from the sand dunes there at night was the most spectacular thing I've seen. You know, astronomically anyway, it was unbelievable. We've seen that. I think it was the Milky Way going all the way across the sky and stuff like that. It was just a phenomenal view, and I'll never forget that. All right, sleeping out on a nighttime in the Mojave Desert was one of the greatest pleasures I ever had, guys. It was fantastic.
for us. Lets us drive our Humvees and one escorting Bradley without headlights. Everyone uses night vision instead. Our vehicles may be loud, but we want to give the enemy as little a heads up as possible. A half hour later, we're rolling into the village and everyone's on high alert. I remember asking during the briefing why we didn't just stop short of the target and hoof it. I feel safer approaching on foot without the vehicles making a bunch of noise and alerting the village the moment we enter. They want this to be a quick operation though. Literally drive up to the guy's front door and yank him out before anyone has a chance to react. On paper,
yeah, and we all know that plans don't necessarily go, well, they never really go according to plan, okay? You can have an idea of what you want to do, it's good. You can go over the order process for hours. The moment you get on the ground, everything changes up. The key to any operation, and any soldier watching this will tell you, you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to adapt to any situation and just go with it. It's simple as that.
Paper, it seemed like a good idea. In reality, I have my doubts, and those doubts grow as I start to see curtains being pulled back in windows and faces looking down at us in surprise. We're at the target block of houses within a minute of arriving though, and I find myself hopeful that we're fast enough to take off guard anyone who might be protecting the enemy VIP. I tell our driver to pull to the back of the houses. Us and a second team are tasked with securing the rear of the buildings and making sure nobody makes a run for it or tries to ambush us from this location. We're out of the Humvee in seconds, taking up positions overlooking the rear and corners of the 5-block row of houses. I look back and see my gunner in the turret behind the 249, and something in my gut tells me to get him off that turret. This is supposed to be a fast op, in and out, so it makes sense for him to stay in the turret, but I can't explain. Something tells me to get him and that gun down, so I do. He ends up taking position by one of the tires of the Humvee, proned out and gun facing down the road we're on. I can hear the entry team bash the front door in, and on cue, 2 of our guys back.
So you just mentioned something there that I think is quite important to talk about. He just had a feeling that he had to tell his gunner to get down from the turret. Now, in the Royal Marines, and I think widely in the British Army in general, we class that as atmospherics, okay? And it's basically your gut instinct. It'll tell you something, and we are absolutely taught to harness that feeling in any situation. It's called atmospherics. Other people may use the term your gut instinct, and like I say, it's to be trusted, all right? And we doubt it all the time, but we learn to trust that instinct pretty well in the military, and it never fails, guys, okay? If you get that feeling, you follow it 100%, and you can use that in any part of life as well, I think.
I hear pop flashbangs inside the 2 windows on the rear of the small target house. Up front, they do the same thing, and almost simultaneously, there's the roar of 4 or 5 bangers going off at once. We have no idea where in the 1-story house this guy is at, but we're not taking any chances. If he was awake and waiting for a fight, I guarantee he's no longer in a condition to do so. Everybody gets tense, waiting for the sound of gunfire, but there's nothing. Just the screaming of some civilians. A man and his wife and kids run out of one of the next door houses and take off down the street, fleeing in terror. We let him go. Then there's a call over the radio. We hit the wrong house. The intel guys screwed up bad. The only people inside are an old woman and her 2 older daughters. The old woman's in bad shape from the bangers, and she needs medical treatment ASAP. I hear the call to abort. We lost the element of surprise, and the last thing our 20-man crew wants to do is get caught with our pants down, as they currently are, in the middle of this village. Everyone starts rushing for the Humvees. Up front, they're taking the old woman and her daughters into the Bradley so they can rush them back to base for medical attention. Briefly, I think about my own grandmother. What if it had been her in that house? We made this mess. Now we gotta clean it up and make it right. Suddenly, there's light, then heat. Finally, a roar. I'm staring up at the sky and I can barely hear anything. Slowly, my hearing comes back. Then I look over at my Humvee just 40 feet away and it's in flames. Took an RPG and it looks like the gas tank got hit. There's burning diesel everywhere. Immediately, I look for my gunner and I see him miraculously laying down fire towards a house.
There you go. Proves that point, guys, okay? He had a good instinct, he followed it. The vehicle got RPG'd, and I've heard countless real-time events as well of trusting your gut instinct, and it's a real skill set, all right, to trust your gut instinct. And I think many people, most civilians actually, that I've met in certain situations, they have a real struggle with actually believing their gut instinct. And if I give any advice to you right now, and I know this isn't an advice video, but is just trust your gut instinct, guys, and that's with anything as well.
A block over. The thick heavy-duty tire and axle somehow protected him from the blast. War is so random sometimes. My head's all fuzzy as I look at my gunner firing away, and I keep remembering, don't fire unless you need to, and keep off the 249s unless absolutely critical. There's civilians everywhere. I open my mouth to tell him to stop firing, but then I see the dust that's being kicked up all around me. Little explosions of dust everywhere, and I realize we're being shot at a lot. My hearing finally comes back as I crawl for cover behind a short concrete wall. The air is full of sharp cracks, and it dawns on me that that's the sound of being on the wrong end of a bullet. I make contact with my team, checking for any casualties. Everybody's fine, but the other team with us has a guy down. My mind races as I take stock of the situation. We're being told to extract ASAP, but I radio back that our Humvee's out and we got 1 casualty. The fire's coming from a house directly up the street from us, and I realized that this was probably the house we were looking for all along. Just our luck to be caught right out there in the open in front of it too. There's fire coming from 2 of the front-facing windows, and somewhere to the left of the house in another building as well. My guys are returning fire best they can, and the 249 is chewing up the front of the house, but having to stop for reloads every 30 seconds or so. He's got no assistant gunner with him this time to help him reload. We weren't supposed to need it. I can see the figures darting in and out of the house to the left and right, and I realize they figured out that we're just a small team, not even a full-strength platoon's worth of soldiers, and 3 of them are intel guys I'm not sure have fired a rifle since basing. I remember my training. We studied the Russian invasion of Afghanistan a lot. Their biggest mistake was staying put when under fire, letting the Mujahideen maneuver on them and outflank them. They took
Yeah, that's one big problem that you really need to sort out straight away. And it's easy enough said, but you do need to, focus on the task at hand. And it's easy to get sucked into the situation and let the minutes pass by. It is important not to flap about though and go crazy. Gather your thoughts, listen to your team leaders in that situation, and make decisions. It's better to make a decision and it be wrong than to not make a decision at all and just wait there for them to make decisions and effectively take you out of the battle. Okay, so in this instance, they've just got to make a decision, and it's as simple as that.
Took huge casualties because of that. We don't stay put. I order my saw gunner to stick with the other fire team to protect the wounded. Now they have 2, and I take my 2 other guys and make a break to our left. We duck behind another row of houses and start slowly sweeping forward. We may be under strength, but we've been trained to fight aggressively. A second fire team from the front of the house is mirroring our movement on a parallel street. One of their Humvees got knocked out as well, and we're down to 2 Humvees in the Bradley. Not enough room to move everyone out. We didn't bring spare vehicles because, again, we were supposed to be in and out. The US military has learned from its mistakes. Too often units have sat still, holding defensive positions waiting for extraction or a chance to make a break for it, racking up casualties the whole time. Not us. We got one way out of this mess, and that's to jump straight into the teeth of it. We take 4 guys completely by surprise. They're practically jogging.
Now, this is one thing that that I think Great Britain is quite strong at, very strong at. In fact, we've got a massive history of warfighting, and we're trained to be quite aggressive troops. Okay, and you can have a team, a section of 8 individuals within that team. The firepower that you can generate from within that fire team, that section, can be phenomenal, okay, with the weaponry that you've got. But not just the weaponry, how you utilize that weaponry, all right? If you're getting fired upon from, strength of numbers less than that of your section, then, you can expect the British military, especially the Royal Marines, the Parachute Regiment, to take the fight to you, all right, doing a section attack. They'll be moving about the battle space, aiming to take you the hell out. And that's what makes us renowned fighting partners of the United States, okay? We're a fantastic British bulldog type attitude, and that's one thing I think we do really, really well, mitigating the losses as well, because if you're aggressive in these situations and you take the fight to them, then the chances are they're going to get overwhelmed. If not by the firepower, they're going to be overwhelmed by your mentality. You've just been shooting at us, and here you are storming towards them, aggressive as hell, and just zero fear. And I say again, that's what the British do really well. Any one of you guys who are watching this who've worked with the Brits will be able to verify that as well. I'm quite confident in that statement.
Down the middle of the street, not even bothering to move tactically, rifles up. Yes, they expected us to hunker down, to sit still. Their mistake. They'll pay for it. It's a lot like shooting targets at the firing range. A few quick squeezes on the trigger and it's over in a couple of seconds. The 3 of us opening up almost simultaneously. We're now just a few houses over from the new target house, which is being hammered by one of the front team's 249s, and incredibly still has people shooting back out.
Here's a question for anyone watching this who's been in an actual situation like this, whether it's in a training serial, whether it's in a real life operational capacity. How did you feel during this? All right, what was going through your mind? And could you drop a comment, please, of what was going through your mind and enlighten those that haven't been in that situation? Because I think people will be surprised just actually what goes through the individual's mind at that given time. It's not necessarily what people would automatically think and believe it to be terror, horror, all of these things. I think it's, there's a lot of people actually get tremendous clarity in these situations, and it's amazing what bullets being fired at you can do to the individual. All right, some people turn into absolute professionals who are capable of amazing things in these situations. All right, not many people get as scared as you'd actually believe if you've been trained.
Out of it. The other fire team maneuvering up also ran into their own bad guys, but they got pinned down in a firefight. Yes, their perps were smarter about how they moved toward an ongoing fight. We fixed the number of hostiles by now though, 2 still firing inside the house, and 3 engaging the fire team maneuvering up the street across from us. There's another estimated 3 down inside the house, 2 in front of it after trying to make a break out the front door, plus the 4 my team got. That's 14 hostiles total, 9 now KIA, who were all either living in or next to the target house. Suddenly, I'm really happy happy we didn't hit the right house. It would have been a bloodbath for the entry teams. It's a small village though, and the good news is that with so many hostiles in one spot, it's unlikely there's reinforcements coming from anywhere else. This gives me an idea. It's insane, and I surprised myself when I realize I'm already transmitting it over the radio. I'm even more surprised when we get the go-ahead. We've been cleared to storm the house, take out the last two guys, hopefully seize the enemy VIP still alive, all with a 3-man assault squad. It's insane, I keep telling myself as we move toward the rear of the house, guns up and eyes trained on the windows and doors around us, but especially the rear door of the house. It's been left wide open, probably from the haste the guys trying to maneuver on us were in. I'm afraid. Damn afraid. I'm about to literally jump into the shark's mouth and take guys with me, but I push it out of my mind. I realize that this is the first time I've been afraid since the fighting actually started. I've been running on pure adrenaline, brain falling back on training. I go back to that place and I try to think about what's coming next as just another training exercise, just another breaching exercise. Move in, shoot the stationary target dummies, don't shoot the civilian dummies, reset the course, do it all over again. At the back of the house, I peer into one of the rear windows. There's what looks like a messy bedroom that sleeps at least a dozen guys.
So he's just talked about mindset and how he put himself into a different zone, so to speak. And I can relate to that. What I used to do in whether it was train situations or whatnot is I used to tap into my aggressive spirit. I can do that. I've got come from a boxing background, and I'm a northern lad from England. We're quite aggressive, assertive anyway. I used to tap back into that, and I could flip it like a switch, and I would do that. I would tap into that aggressive nature, really tap into it as well, and almost welcome the brain fog. But it's like a haze, red mist we call it, or whatever. And I would actually tap into that. So I would be thinking really clear. Many people think that brain fog is, you can't think clear or anything like that. But I just let my body go into almost automation. All right, let it do its thing. When you're training in environments, it becomes automated. It becomes part of your subconscious. And I used to like to try and tap into that. And sometimes I'd just try and flip the switch, get mega aggressive instantly, and then just change that mindset instantaneously. And it's almost like a switch. Some people have it, some people don't, okay?
Blankets all over the floor, but it's clear. The back door leads to what I'm assuming is a hallway. Slowly, the three of us maneuver on that door, stopping just to the right of it. This was my stupid idea, so it's my head that peers out and into the open door. Long hallway, and I can hear what sounds like two guys firing from one of the rooms at the end of the hallway. Looks like they didn't leave any rear security. Again, probably expected us to sit tight, defend our casualties, and wait for extract. This is a new ward though. We don't sit and wait for air support anymore. Hit us, and we're going for the jugular. I call for the gunner, still putting fire on the house, to aim high. The machine gunner is now shifting his fire up, hitting the roof of the building so he doesn't inadvertently put rounds through the thin walls and into us. By keeping up the fire though, he's drawing the attention of the two guys still inside, making them think they're still taking direct fire. I take point. Again, it's my bad idea. Might as well be the first in. Also, it's my team. The thought of one of the guys buying it and me going home safe because I was second or third in scares me more than this firefight. We stack on the side of the door, just like in training, ready to burst in almost simultaneously. The third man on the stack squeezes the shoulder of the second guy, who in turn squeezes my shoulder. That's the cue. And on getting that squeeze, I silently whip into the door, rifle up and ready. It's supposed to be a 4-man stack, but we adapt. I push past the first door on the left, and the 2 men behind me whip into the room. I hold position just past the door, still focused dead ahead where the shooting is coming from, a room further down the hall on the right. A second later, the 2 come out of the door, whispering all clear. We press forward once again. The hallway is tight, too tight for the guys behind me to safely fire if anything happens without running the risk of hitting me in the back. So I'm all this.
Yeah, this type of urban combat in a building, close quarters, the casualty rate is crazy, okay, on both sides. Expect to be shot at. But there's another thing to expect, is that you're the trained individual in this. You're the professional. You're the person who's done this many times under professional guidance by other people who've lived it, breathed it, and experienced it. So there's one thing to be sure. Trust your training. It works. It's there for a reason. And, you're the alpha in this situation, not the other people. That's what we were always taught. So go in confident knowing that you're going to come out the victor.
security we have as we move forward. I'm duck walking, my feet spread widely apart and chest forward to the enemy. That way if I do take a round, it'll go straight into the thick armor plate covering my chest. It's an awkward technique to learn at first, but we've practiced it so long that it's easy as regular walking for me. I keep expecting someone to pop out ahead of us, but nobody does. The two firing away in the room ahead to our left are still completely unaware we're in the house. There's a body up ahead lying in the hallway. By now we're close enough to the front that I can see all the bullet holes in the walls where our rifle and machine gun fire tore straight through the thin walls of the home. This guy must have caught rounds that came through the closed front door when the fight started. I take a quick look at the body, which is lying face up, and then call for the man behind me to cover me as I take a knee real quick. His rifle goes up as I duck down, checking a photo in my pocket the intel guys provided us with. Yep, it's him, the bomb maker. Now, just another KIA. The entire mission is basically pointless now, just two loose ends left to tie up. The saw gunner out front has been strafing the far left side of the house and the roof to make it seem like he's still opening up on the bad guy shooting out the window. Now I call him over the radio. He pulls his fire up even higher, putting it clear over the roof of the building and into the sky. Me and my team are directly outside the bad guy's door now. I don't feel anything. Just another run through the CQB course back home. Nothing to it but swing in, fan out, take out your dummy targets, and press on. I feel that squeeze on my shoulder, and operating purely from instinct, I swing into the doorway and press forward. In CQB, you slice up a room into individual fields of fire, and each man has his own slice. It's vital you clear your slice first, even if there's no bad guy there, because if you ignore it to open up on a bad guy in somebody else's slice, you could miss someone. And now that bad guy you didn't put down is going to put you down and your team down. I swing into the room and press forward just like in training. First man in, I'm responsible for the far left rear.
Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That's one of the most important things I learned, all right? Get in, slow, smooth, all right? Because it just works better. People try and rush this kind of stuff. They miss things, they don't see things, they flap about, they panic. And when you panic in this situation, you get killed. Simple as that. So, smooth, slow, all of that good stuff, yeah?
Corner of the room, away from the front-facing windows, away from the bad guys. The second and third man are in the room just split seconds after me. There's silence at first, then the roar of gunfire coming from my guys. My slice of the room is clear, so I turn to the known threats, but they're already down. They never saw us coming, never dreamed we would do anything but hunker down and try to defend ourselves. In combat, whoever has the initiative is typically the victor. We've been trained to be aggressive, to seize the initiative and deny it to the enemy, keep him off balance. Tonight, that training saved our lives. I think about this night later, and I find myself glad that my slice of the room had been clear. I'm glad it wasn't me that had to put down a hostile at point-blank range, close enough to see their face. Arthur Wearmouth crawled through the mud.
Right then, guys, so that's that one. I would love to know who that account is actually from. It does seem like a legitimate story, so we can't really dissect it factually. You know, we have to take it as it comes, but that was pretty amazing. I enjoyed that an awful lot, guys. I really did, and it's good to see an insight into someone's account, even though we don't know who it is, because like it says, you can have a plan, all right, but in this situation, when things go wrong, you got to be able to adapt and overcome that situation, and everything falls on your training. So whether you're in the US military, the British military, the Swedish military, Indian military, wherever you're watching this from, all right, when you're in training, you got to work hard. You got to listen to your instructors because it's there for a reason. It's tried and tested. Don't try and crack your own, all right, because you'll fail. But if you like this one, like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Peace.